So what we're going to do is, last time, well, we've been talking up till now about direct positive messages, even though some of them seemed, as Amy pointed out last time, these don't seem all that positive. They were still in the realm of positive because our expectation was that, the person wasn't going to be hostile or anything. Well, now we're in the bad news phase, and this is where, like, yeah, things are really bad. So strategies can write memos and letters and emails when things are bad. And then our grammar part is going to be, we're going to dive deep into the pronouns, which if you were a 156 student last semester, some of that will be reviewed. Okay. Okay, so bad news messages. So yeah, unfortunately, every once in a while, it's not going to be all unicorns and rainbows, and you're going to have to deliver some bad news. But we're going to learn some strategies to try to reduce the pain and kind of buffer it out. And if you haven't guessed, yeah, that probably means the indirect message strategy. Okay, so when there is bad news, these are your goals, right? You want to try to get your emotions out of it, just explain things clearly, convey empathy and sensitivity to their situation. You always want to try to stay professional, try to be fair, and you want to regain their trust and business, so you want to try to maintain friendly relations. So here's our first go at strategies. So as we know, we have our choice between the direct message strategy or the indirect message strategy. Now that we're moving into the really bad news, this is going to shift into more of the indirect strategy, but direct strategy can still be used. We're going to go over the cases where you might still want to stay with a direct strategy. Okay, but I think by this time you know what the differences between these two are. If not, you'll be doing those in your assignments. Okay, so when can I still use the direct strategy even when this is really bad news? Well, possibly if the bad news isn't really damaging, it's just like, oh, shoot. Or if the receiver of your messages, due to your analysis of the situation, you might think they might just overlook this bad news. I mean, it's bad news, but every day we get some bad news. It's not a big deal. This one is probably the most interesting one. If you're doing business with an organization continually and you kind of know them by now and you know what their communication style is, they may be like, just get to the point, right? Just tell me what the deal is. If you feel like that's the situation here, then stay with the direct message strategy because it is the most obviously direct way, right? And then last one, or I think there's actually some more on the next slide. If the situation is such that you're getting a lot of pushback and you have to be firm in your position, you might want to stay with the direct message strategy. Okay, what about indirect message strategy? So again, this is probably more where you're going to be this week with these kind of messages. So if the bad news is personally upsetting, we're going to get into some exercises about that. If you think they're going to be downright hostile with this news, if you think the news is going to actually threaten your business relationship, or if it's just sort of like out of the blue, a little buffering might help. Okay, so in the indirect strategy for negative news, usually we talk about the opening, body, and closing. We're going to expand on that a little bit here. We're going to make it to 4 things. So we're going to start with a buffer, which is still our opening, but it's a unique style of opening where we're going to put some buffer in first before we get to the bad part. And we're going to go through some strategies of how to do that in a sec. And then when you get into the body, that's where you want to explain the causes of the bad news before you actually say what it is. Again, we're going to go through a bunch of examples. And then finally, you reveal the bad news, but you don't want to make a big show out of it, right? Just, yes, we had to cancel the contract, or you didn't get the job, or whatever it is, right? And then in the closing, you try to want to stay upbeat, personalized, forward-looking, like I'm sure going forward everything's going to be okay, and don't dredge back up with the bad news. You've already covered it in the body. Okay, but you might say, hey, look, I think that's kind of cheating or kind of a cheap shot, right? You're not telling me the bad news right up front and you're doing all these sort of tricks to try and hide it, whatever. Not really, okay? We're not unethical. We're not trying to manipulate the person just because we're delaying it. I mean, you're sincerely trying to save their feelings, right? Because this bad news could cause them pain and hard feelings. So just like you wouldn't, talk to your child or even your pet or whatever and come right out with the bad stuff, you give it a little buffer there. Same here. It's really for them. It's really not for you. But you should never use it to avoid or misrepresent the truth. Okay, we're just doing some delaying buffering tactics. All right, so how do we actually compose one? So like we said, you open with a buffer. We do that to, again, reduce the shock or the pain of the negative news. So what you do is you begin with a neutral but meaningful statement. There's a number of bullet points we'll go through in a second of ideas here. And then the buffer should be relevant and concise. So not a big long diatribe, just a short little thing to give yourself the transition into the body where you're going to explain why, what's going on. So yeah, here's some ideas for your buffer. Often when there's bad news, there's also with it good news. Like we have a new medical plan and it's always, a trade-off there. We have this new medical plan and, now you can get up to 90 days supply on your direct mail medications. That's good, but the price went up. That's bad, right? So you start off with the good part, right? We have a new medical plan and we're happy to announce that you can now get a 90-day supply. That's in your buffer, right? Another idea would be a compliment. Thank you for your continued business, like that sort of thing. Another idea is appreciation. Say something about how you thank them for showing confidence in your organization. More. Something that you agree upon. Start with that in your buffer. Facts. You can just come out with some facts that's going to transition into the explanation, bad news, body part. Understanding. You can start off, you've seen this over and over again when you usually get bad news. It's, we understand that you're having a hard time, whatever, right? Okay, so we talked about apologizing before. This is a little bit tricky. So apologizing is okay if it's genuinely an expression of remorse and you think it will help, basically. But you really don't want to admit any wrongdoing or anything like that, because that could lead to litigation. Okay, so if you are going to do the apology thing, you want to do it right away. You want to say, it was our fault if it is your fault, but just use your judgment there. So when you're showing empathy, we talked about that both in the buffer and in the body. There's this consultancy that does this thing where they survey companies and they came up with this empathy quotient. And it combined all these things to see like how empathetic is your company. And part of that thing was 90% of the CEOs of those companies that they surveyed said that empathy was a key factor to their success. So it's something that you definitely want to work on. Okay, so now we're in the body part. And you're going to, in the indirect strategy, you're going to present the reasons. In the indirect strategy, as we said over and over again, you put that in before you get to the bad news. But in the direct strategy, you just come right out at the beginning and say, here's the bad news and here's why. Right. So you can think of it sort of like in the indirect strategy, here's why and here's the bad news. And in the direct, it's here's the bad news and here's why. Okay, and here's some ideas for when you want to present the reasons in your body. So if, first of all, if the reasons aren't confidential, I mean, there may be a business merger in place or who knows what, right? A lawsuit that you're involved, the company's involved in. So as long as they're not confidential and it's not going to create any legal liability for you to disclose, you can be very specific about what's going on. The other thing you can do is, as we studied last semester, what's in it for me, the you view, if you can sort of steer the conversation towards how they may benefit somehow, even though this is bad news. That's a tricky one. All right, so this one, let's talk about this explaining company policy in detail, because if I'm an angry customer and we're in an email conversation and your explanation of the bad news is, well, that's just company policy. How do you think that makes me feel? It doesn't really make me feel like you're really trying, or, I don't care about your company policy. I just want my thing fixed or whatever, right? But it's still a thing, right? I mean, you have company policies that you have to work within, usually. So instead of just saying, I'm sorry, that's company policy, you might try explaining why this policy is in place. What were the reasons behind the company establishing this policy? Another tack you can take is try to choose positive words. Obviously, it's bad news and there's going to be some negativity in there, but just try to, whenever possible, choose positive wording and receptive mood in your writing. And then, people always, even if it's bad news that they're receiving, they want to be treated fairly and they want to be taken seriously. So as you're explaining the reasons, just keep that in mind and try to show them that you're taking this seriously. You're not just, hoping they just go away and not come back. And then you want to also try and show that you're trying to be fair for both the company and them. Okay. Here's more ideas for cushioning the blow in your body as well. So positioning the bad news in the body. So instead of spotlighting it, you can kind of try and sandwich it in between other things in your reasoning. So you're not trying to mislead them. You're not trying to be untruthful. You're just moving a sentence, maybe up a sentence than you had it originally in your draft. And then using the passive voice. We talked about passive voice definitely in 156. We talked about it a little bit in this class, and we're going to talk about it way more in the upcoming module. But one of the benefits of the passive voice is it allows you to not state the actor of the verb. So the old example I keep using is the boy plays the piano. The boy played the piano. That's the active voice, right? Because the boy is acting on the verb. But you could turn it around and pick the other verb to start with as your subject verb and say the piano was played by the boy. But you can also just say the piano was played. You don't even have to mention the boy. That's one of the advantages of passive voice. We use that for a number of reasons. For here, we're using it to avoid assigning blame in specific organization or person. You'll see that when we get into the tech writing thing, we also use it because it highlights the action rather than the actor. We'll go into that much later when we get to the tech writing part. years ago, I went to a seminar about communication, and this was one of the key things. Always try to turn around what you can't do by saying what you can do. You don't have to omit that it's something you can't do. You can say, well, we can't, if they're requesting something, well, sorry, we can't do that, but we can do this, right? And then implying the refusal, we have a whole thing coming up in a second about implying the refusal, so I'll refer to that, but it's a sort of a linguistic trick to structure the sentence so that the refusal is in there, but it's implicit. We'll see examples. Is there a plan B? Right, so you can give them, it's kind of similar to saying what you can do instead of what you can't do. But if you can say, well, I understand you want this, but for these reasons, we can't do that, but we can do this, your plan B. So that was the body. Then when you get to the closing, I mean, you still want to keep this customer. So you would like to close with a pleasant statement, goodwill statement. Often you want to do a forward look, like I hope, this doesn't impact our business going forward, that kind of thing. The freebies thing you need to be careful with. I mean, this can work. It depends on the context and situation. If it's really bad news, this may not be a great time to say, hey, we look forward to continued business, and we have these other products that you might want to look at. Be careful with that. We call that the resale, and it's kind of a promotion, right? So might not be appropriate if it's really bad news. Okay, in the closing, we just said some of these things: the forward look, give them the plan B, and especially in rejecting responses where you're rejecting a job candidate or whatever, wish them well, right? Okay, a lot of companies use the freebies, right? If you have a complaint about something, you try to resolve their complaint. But if the company has some kind of program where they allow you to offer free services or free items, yeah, try to tap into that. It always makes people feel better, right? And so I guess I was already kind of saying this. If the bad news is really not really bad, devastating, or personal, you might be able to refer to this resale kind of thing. It might be appropriate. Okay. So I'm going to highlight a couple of things we just went over in a little bit more detail. So when we say bad news, well, what kind of things, are we talking about exactly? So here's some examples of bad news that we're talking about for this week. Could be criticisms of or another organization within your organization or people in your organization, a crisis. Often it's a rejection letter, either for somebody who's applying for a job, or you went out for bids for something and you got 3 bids. Well, obviously you can only choose one, so you're going to have to reject the other 2. Cancellation and refusal. Those are just some examples. This is going over what we already said, I think, pretty much. Just a reminder that you just want to take your emotions out of it, be clear, always try and stay professional. Try to convey that empathy and sensitivity. Try to show them that you're taking them serious and that you're being fair. And then try to, in the closing especially, maintain that friendly relation that you had. Okay, so we talked about, well, you sometimes can still use direct strategy in these bad news messages. When would you do that? If it's not a real sensitive issue, we already kind of went over this. I think this is the main one that I think of when I think of I could still use the direct strategy. I know this customer, we've been in business for years. I know they just prefer the communication style, which is direct. And then for the indirect, again, we already talked about this. Okay, so here's a little picture that might help of the 4 steps for the indirect strategy. So instead of having the opening, we call it the buffer now. And you try to stay neutral in there. You don't come out with the bad news yet. You might start talking about reasons why this bad news is necessary and that you're taking them serious. And then I guess you could say both of these are sort of in the body. You start with the reasons and then you go into the bad news, right? So we're buffering, delaying, and then finally getting to the bad news.
This is kind of like the one we did for the gate, right? The gate homework we did.
Yeah, although I think we were still trying to stay in direct message strategy for that one, but a lot of this stuff is the same. A lot of the stuff is the same. Okay, so in that buffer, some ideas. We kind of went over some of these already. Neutral positive statement to keep them reading, so you got to kind of get their attention. And then maybe some transitioning words into the body for the bad news. Some of those things could be a compliment or appreciation or an agreement, something that you can both agree on, or some solid fact that's undeniable. And you can show understanding of their position. Okay, but what do you not want to use when you're writing the buffer? So you never really want to give the impression that good news is coming. And one of the things that we often see is, say you were invited to, say, speak at some conference or something. And often people start their buffer with, thank you for the opportunity to speak at your convention or whatever. Well, you might want to rethink that because that's sort of telegraphing that you're going to say, yeah, I'll accept, right? So you might want to temper that a little bit differently because you don't want them to think that what's coming up is good and then they get let down, right? You don't want to use the word no or negative words in general. And then all of these wordy phrases that we kind of learned to avoid in 156, you don't need them. We have received your letter, blah, 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 right? Thank you for your letter. We're writing a response, obviously. And then also almost the flip side is refrain from the know-it-all. You should be aware of that. We cannot support that computer or whatever. And then, yeah, I think it's best to try to avoid the apology because it weakens your position and opens you to liability. But you want to keep this buffer short. You don't want to go on. It's just enough to, kind of say hello and transition into the. Okay, so here's some scenarios, and there's no right or wrong here. I just want to start you thinking about different scenarios that we would encounter where these types of messages will come into play. Oh, I think I already kind of mentioned this one sort of. You're like in the HR department, whatever, and you have a new health plan now. Seems like every year there's a new health plan, right? And bad news is they're changing it from what it used to be to you only get a 34-day supply and the copayment's going up. However, if you choose home delivery, you can save $24 on each prescription. So which thing do you think you'd start off with in your buffer? Do you think you'd start off with the fact that their prescription supply is going down and the co-payments are going up? Or do you think you'd start with, oh, there's a new thing where you get $24 off if you choose home delivery? Which one do you think you'd go with?
I would start off with like the negatives of the old plan, I guess.
You want to start off with the positive, right? In the buffer thing, remember we went back here, start off with any positive thing you can say. And look at this. So you want to start off with, we have a new health plan, and with home delivery, we're happy to let you know that you can now save $24 on each prescription. Then you transition into the bad news, and you can even do the trick where you sandwich that bad news sentence in between some other sentences in your body.
And
Right?
then you'd have to end with the positive um, ending, I guess,
In the
right?
closing, yeah, well, but that wouldn't be any item related to the situation. That would be things we talked about, just, I hope we can continue doing business. I hope you success in the future, things of that nature. Right, in closing. Okay, here's another one. In a letter declining an invitation to speak, could you write to buffer the refusal? So I already mentioned that it's probably not a great idea to build their hopes up by saying, thank you for the invitation to speak. But you might be able to say something like, I'm very impressed to receive your invitation because I know of the quality of your organization, something like that, right? Okay, the next one. Suppose you had to draft a letter that refuses employment in a medical office. How would you buffer the refusal? Well, here I think it's okay to say something like, thank you for applying to our company. We appreciate your blah, 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 right? Next one. How would you buffer a letter that rejects a loan application? Again, you could say, thank you for considering our bank for your loan application, something like that. How would you buffer a memo announcing cutbacks in the hours of the employee cafeteria? This is more of a challenging one, right? Is there any positive buffer thing you could think of for this one?
You could start by acknowledging their hard work as an employee.
You could do that. You could also just say, we're happy to announce that the employee cafeteria is still in operation. Like, we're not cutting that, right? We're going to cut this. And maybe, in that scenario, in the body for explanation, you could say that something like, rather than, due to economic conditions, whatever, rather than close the employee cafeteria, we have decided to cut back the hours, something like that. So that's
that sounds like bad news already.
Well, I'm saying that would be in the body, so that would be the bad news part. That would be coupled with, we're happy to let you know that the employee cafeteria will still be in operation. That was
Does it matter how much weight we put on? Because that's like two things, two subjects, kind of, right? I mean, it's one subject, but you're writing about two things. Can you just hide? Can you just throw in the cutting the hours at really at the end?
Right, that would be in the body, right? So if all I was saying was, if in the opening you said we're keeping the employee cafeteria open to try to be, well, that's the positive thing, right? Then when you get into the body, your reasoning could be, well, we considered closing it, but instead we're just going to cut back the hours. But that definitely is the bad news. That definitely is in the body, not in the buffer. How would you buffer a letter to customers announcing a prescription defect? These get harder and harder as they get up, right?
Would you tell them, thank you for choosing our pharmacy? Right?
Yeah, you can say things like that. I'm not exactly sure what a prescription defect means in this case. You could thank them for using your prescription product. You could mention that this prescription is highly effective, that kind of thing. Okay, so now we're going into that was the buffer. Now we're going into the body and the reasoning. Here's some ideas. Again, just take the emotion out of it and just explain the logic behind the bad news. Due to company policy forbidding the blah blah blah, we can no longer blah blah blah. Provide a rational and costless explanation. Provide evidence that the matter was considered fairly and seriously. So again, maybe using my example of we decided to cut the hours back instead of closing the cafeteria, you could give them the actual data that caused the company to come up with that decision. And yeah, if there's any possible reader benefits, you definitely want to pump those up. Okay, so here's some instead of do this kind of thing. So you want to position the bad news so it does not stand out. We talked about potentially sandwiching it in between some other sentences in the body, highlight the positive, but again, don't manipulate, don't cheat, don't sugarcoat, be clear, use objective language, and try to suggest that plan B if there is one. So instead of saying something like, we must deny, or we cannot afford to, or we must reject the proposal, or we must turn down, try things like, this position has been filled. See, here we're using the passive voice, right? So we don't have to say, we're going to get into the implied refusals in a second. This is an example of imply refusal. Contact us again. We've accepted the proposal from another builder. Please send your payment. Okay, and then in the closing, we're trying to provide information about the plan B if it exists. Looking forward, what's going to happen next, and wish them well. So avoid the cliches. We apologize for any inconvenience. Try not to look insincere. We regret this with all our hearts, really. I doubt that. Don't be inappropriate. We really screwed that up. And, you know, try to use the you view and what's in it for them. So don't try to make it about you. You made us feel so bad. It's like, not about us, it's about them, right? Okay, we went over this already, right? Yeah. Okay, so again, if you're ever thinking like, hey, this is kind of a cheap trick or whatever, really, it's not about you, it's about them. You're trying to spare their feelings. Right. Okay, so here's your assignment. So here's the scenario. The University of, this is true actually, the University of South Florida, St. Petersburg made a big mistake. They inadvertently welcomed 430 rejected applicants. The email said, once again, congratulations on your admission, but they were actually rejected. We are excited to welcome you to the university and are very proud that you've accomplished so far, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so that message was intended to be sent to the 250 students who had been accepted.
But it got sent to the
But instead, it got sent to the 430 people who got rejected.
What do they do?
Yes, exactly. Well, what are you going to do? You're the one that's going to write the letter. Okay. So the chancellor said it was human error in the admissions office. We regret it. He said, we pride ourselves on our relationship with the community, and this doesn't represent that. An error was made. One applicant who received it was very disappointed. I was very, very let down because I've been waiting for a final decision since November. All right, what could the university do to correct this massive slip up? So let's say you're the, whatever the position is, executive secretary, whatever, for Chancellor Tadlock, and you have to write this bad news message to those students who received the message in error. Many of them are going to be wondering what their real status is. Did I get rejected? Did I get accepted? They don't even know. So remember to go back and look at all the different strategies that we went over to compose the buffer, the body, and the closing. And this is one of those, you're going to do this from scratch. So you're going to open the business letter template here, if you don't already have it downloaded. And you're going to write this letter in Word. And as usual, when you're done, you'll drag and drop the Word file onto the Rocket to submit. Any questions about that assignment?
That's a crazy scenario.
Sometimes things happen. It's like that. Okay, so now we're into the grammar part. I'm wondering if maybe we should just take our 10-minute break now before we begin. Let's begin a little bit. It's only 10:23. Okay, you're probably getting really tired of seeing this chart by now, but we're just working our way down the parts of speech.
It makes sense. It's okay.
For grammar, I found that repetition is required and necessary.
Yes.
So we talked about nouns. We talked about verbs. When we talked about nouns, we touched on pronouns because they are kind of a type of noun. They replace a noun. But now we're really going to talk about pronouns in depth. And again, if you were in 156, a lot of this is going to be reviewed. So as we mentioned, a pronoun is a word used in place of a noun or noun phrase to avoid repetition and improve clarity. So if I was writing say we're writing a news release, and we're going to tell the folks that Governor Gavin Newsom came to our company to inspect our facility. And we start off with Governor Gavin Newsom inspected Intertech today. Governor Gavin Newsom saw this. Gavin Newsom saw that. After a while, you're going to be like, stop telling me about Governor Gavin Newsom. We want to replace that with just he, him, right? That's the whole point of pronouns. To avoid repetition, improve clarity. Okay, so we have 6 different types of pronouns. Now, the personal ones are the ones we're really going to focus on, but we're also going to touch on the other ones too. Here's just a short little list of them. So personal pronouns refer to persons, animals, and things, and they are the I, you, he, she, it, they, etc. Reflexive pronouns reflect back to the speaker, myself, yourself, herself, himself, so on. Relative pronouns relate one part of the sentence to another. Who, whom, whose, which, what. Now, you'll notice that those are the same words that are down here in interrogative. Yes, same word can be one or the other. Just like the word saw can mean you looked at something and it can mean you cut something, right? Indefinite pronouns don't refer to a specific person or things. Anybody, everyone, several. Trick here is some of these are singular, some of them are plural, and it's often not easy to tell which is which. We'll get into that. Interrogative, I think we kind of talked about interrogative already. You're asking a question, who, whom, who, which, what. And demonstrative, you're pointing out something, this thing, that thing, those things. All right. Let's get into the personal pronouns. Like we said, they take the place of a person, animal, or thing previously mentioned. The thing that it's referring back to is called the antecedent. So that would probably be a subject noun that occurred prior to this sentence. Could be just before the sentence, could be actually in the sentence if it's a compound sentence. It could be last paragraph. If it's an email thread, it could have been a week ago. So just like a noun, they have gender, number, and person, meaning first, second, and third person, and they have case, or how it relates to the verb. We're going to get into all of this. There's your chart in your reference module. You're going to be really tired looking at this chart after a while. These are all the pronouns and when you use them. Okay, we'll get into that. Okay, just like the noun, they have a gender: masculine, feminine, neutral, and inanimate. So masculine, obviously he, him, she, her, they, them, it, its. It has a number. It can be singular or plural. It has a person, just like the noun, but it's replacing, right? Just as a reminder, first person is when you're talking about yourself, I, me, mine. It's like the Beatles song. Second person is the person that you're having a conversation with, you, yours, right? And third person is you're talking to another person, but you're talking about a person that's not in this conversation, right? You're talking about a person or thing. He, she, it, him, his. They, them, their, theirs, for the plural. Okay, and then the case, we're not talking about upper or lower case here. We're talking about subjective or objective case. And that means how this is pronoun relating to the verb that it sits in the sentence with. How does it relate to it? Is it the doer or the doee? Is it acting on the verb or is it receiving the action of the verb? We're going to get way into that in another module. There's also another case, there's a third case, the possessive case. We're going to cover that in another module much later. Okay, but here's the thing. Pronoun has to match the antecedent and all those things. Why? Why do we have this silly rule? Well, we don't want to lose information, right? We talked about Governor Gavin Newsom. When I said that, you know exactly who I'm talking about. But if I say he later on to refer to that antecedent, possibly could be a couple of different potential antecedents that came before this. Which one are you talking about? So if I match it to Governor Gavin Newsom, so that's a masculine singular, right? And then depending on if the action was to him or from him, you would pick one of the pronouns out of that table that matched, right? That way you're not losing the information about all the things that was the Gavin Newsom proper noun. So here's my example. With
Gavin Newsom.
no, we're going to go with Jack and Diane.
Okay.
With apologies to John Cougar here. Jack and Diane went to the Tasty Freeze. Blank ate chili dogs. Well, what's it goes in the blank? if I don't say anything, we're losing information. I don't know who you're talking about. Are you talking about Jack? Are you talking about Diane? Are you talking about both of them? Now, if I said he ate chili dogs, it's clear. I'm talking about Jack. If I said she ate chili dogs, it's clear. I'm talking about Diane. If I said they ate chili dogs, I'm talking about them both. So that's what we're trying to accomplish here, right? You have to use the pronoun that matches the intended antecedent, or we're going to lose information about that. And the very strict grammar rule is any pronoun that you use has to match all those things, or it's not a correct sentence. All right. That's the big takeaway out of this module right here. Okay, it's 10:30. Why don't we stop right here and do the 10-minute? Timer.
I need another coffee. And I'm cold, so.
Coffee wore out. That coffee wore out.
Yeah. Yeah. This one's gonna keep me awake. Oh, I'm cold. It's gonna make me warm. I need a jacket to go. Is it raining? I don't know if it's still.
Professor Dwayne,
Yeah,
can I ask you a question?
yeah.
For the assignment where we have to do the letter, for the chairman,
For the additions thing?
yeah,
Uh-huh.
are we putting, our name? Or are we doing the chairman's name?
You're writing this letter for the chairman or dean or whatever it was. So you want to use his information.
His information, and we're signing it with his information.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're writing for him. I guess you could say he's being a chicken and he won't do it himself. So he's making you do it.
Okay. Thank you.
Anybody taking John's Excel class this semester?
Yeah.
You are?
Which is that the advanced?
No.
It's 43 and 44.
Yeah.
I took 43 last semester with it was a lady.
Either Jen or Trista, maybe.
I think it was Krista, or because it wasn't Jen.
Krista.
I'm taking the advanced one in March.
So John's having really bad back problems. He's out. So I'm going to be teaching his Excel class tomorrow.
Oh, really? That's cool.
I guess. I would just
No, not for you.
Okay.
The beginning one had a lot of, like, the homework it took a lot of time.
It does. There's a lot of steps in them.
Yeah.
Is it going to be the same for the advanced?
Yeah, it's more the
Oh,
same.
yeah.
Keep
It's
going.
the second half of the book.
Yeah.
Oh, damn.
Yeah. It's good stuff, but it is a lot of work. It takes a lot of time.
I mean, Excel is just a
It's
really
hard.
deep application that can do so many things. And if you know how to use all those things, that's fantastic, right? It's an amazing tool.
The problem is, I noticed though, that like once you start doing it on your own, you still have to go back and look it up. I mean, it takes a while to remember all those things.
It totally does. And I think a lot of the people make the mistake of they're just like, I'm just following these steps in the book. I don't really know what I'm doing. You know, I'm just following these steps in the book. That only gets so far, right? At some point you have to stop and say, what am I doing here? What's the big picture?
Yeah. I mean, eventually, uh, I mean, you probably always have to go look back because doesn't Excel have like so many different things you can do?
There's a million things it can do. And if things go wrong, it doesn't have the best sort of debugger, and it doesn't really give you much, just this error. It's like, what did I do wrong? But I gotta tell you, man, in engineering especially, we use spreadsheets to do all kinds of crazy stuff. Data analysis, what if analysis, algorithm design, all kinds of things. It's just faster to do that than to actually write a program that you're gonna throw away to do some, potential thing that might not work.
How many classes does on spreadsheets does Cabrillo offer? Just the two?
I think basically it's just the beginning and advanced, but they do it in a couple of different flavors. There's the whole 400 series classes. There's the one that's offered in the jail, so they have different flavors, but I think it's really just the two classes.
Do you think agent AI will take over like business spreadsheets? Not for engineering, of course, but for
Not gonna take over. It'll be your sidekick, a helper. It could do some amazing things with like raw data, like fixing up a bunch of bad address lists and things like that. But it really can't figure out, what you're trying to accomplish.
yeah.
Again, the whole AI hype thing is overhyped. Sure, it'll stick around, it'll be super useful for certain things. Here's the thing. People don't care about the technology, they just want a solution to their problem. That's what they're buying. So if this thing can help them, say, clear up their huge address list that's got duplicates and bad address formatting and stuff, great. I don't care if it's AI, I don't care what it is, right? But just to come out and say, we have AI, that's sort of the mistake Microsoft just made with Copilot. They put it everywhere and it's not very useful the way they've implemented it. And so it's getting a lot of pushback. I don't know if you noticed in the news, they walked it back. They're saying we're going to remove Copilot from a number of things in the next release.
Oh, really? That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, ChatGPT like makes jokes. It's pretty insane.
When you first start using it, you're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And then the shine wears off after a while. And you're like, oh, yeah, I see. It's okay.
Yeah, it gets funky after like
It's
like
weird. It's not really answering my question. And it comes off like it's answering your question with this attitude, right? And it's like, you don't know anything, do you? And if you say that, are you sure about this? It will say, no, I'm not sure about this.
yeah, I tried to have it help me for like statistics and for a math class, and it was getting a lot of stuff wrong.
It's very bad at math. Telling time, it's horrible at telling time. Like that's the usual thing. Things that are simple for humans are hard for computers and vice versa.
Yeah,
But hey, no doubt you'll be using it to do certain aspects of your job in the future. There's no doubt about that. It's just not what they're trying to make it out to be. Like it's going to replace everybody. It can do everything. It can cure cancer. No, it can't do any of those things.
oh well, yeah. I was just wondering because I've been noticing a lot of push for like the trades to get into the trades, but then
It's going to die down because it's the same reason they put Copilot and everything. There's this adoption curve of technology. You can look this up if you want. But the initial thing is it's all driven by the investors and the stock price and everything. It's like, you have to have AI. And you're like, what do you mean? You're like, I don't know. You just have to have it because that'll make our stock price go up. So we've gone through that phase and now we're on the adoption phase and people are like, wait a minute. Some of this I can use, most of it I can't use. So
yeah. So if everyone does the trades, then of course you're gonna need AI because you're gonna be over here doing something else, learning something else.
well, I think they're in the initial things like, oh, everybody's saying we have to have AI, we have to have AI. But then when you actually get into the everyday use of it, you find out, well, some of these things are useful, but most of it isn't.
Yeah.
So in the coming 8-9 months, we're already seeing the bubble burst. In the coming 8-9 months, we're going to see the hype flatten out, and then we'll get to the, okay, what can I use here? What's useful? What isn't useful?
Yeah, I agree.
Stop saying AI everywhere. I was in Best Buy and they had an ad for sports glasses, like for running, whatever. Oh, okay, whatever. AI enabled. I'm like, why would I need that? What problem does that solve for me?
Yeah. Well, I think it would be like maybe like a map. They could probably put a map on there.
Yeah,
Camera.
lots everything, right?
That's what the cops use when they do those shows, I think, the live PD.
So that is one place where AI is a useful thing is, instead of having to go like you're a cop, you got to wear your camera these days, right? And instead of having to go
Yeah.
write it up, the AI can take the
Oh yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah. They
trans.
can write it up on the spot.
Yeah. Okay, let me turn off the timer. Off the timer. All right, so where were we? We're talking about reflexive pronouns. Get rid of this thing here. So the word reflexive, it's like your reflection in the mirror, right? Something coming back to you, like a reflex action coming back to you. So reflexive pronouns are words like myself, yourself, himself, herself, has the self in it, right? And they refer back to the subject of the sentence when the subject and the object are the same. So here's an example. Bellaway said she would buy the flowers herself. Okay, so we have a couple of pronouns in here. Which one is the personal pronoun and which one is the reflexive pronoun? Well, the giveaway is the self thing. So herself, that's the reflexive pronoun, and she is the normal personal pronoun. But you'll notice that this is reflecting back to that one, right? Okay, here's some more examples. She buys herself a stethoscope. So herself is reflecting back to she. He gives himself insulin injections every day. Himself reflects back to he. I am myself only when I feel good. Myself reflecting back to I. They smiled at themselves when the procedure was over. Themselves reflecting back to they. Are you by yourself today? Yourself reflecting back to you. Why don't you get yourselves a snack while you wait? Yourselves reflecting back to the you. We are just fooling ourselves. Ourselves reflecting back to we. Okay, but here's the key thing. We can't use a reflexive pronoun without the antecedent in the same sentence. You notice that in all of these? Right? The antecedent was in the same sentence. Ourselves, we. Yourselves, you. Yourself, you, right? Here's a very common mistake people make. The proposal was compiled by Jeremy and myself last quarter. Wrong. I'm using myself. What does it reflect back to? There's no antecedent pronoun in the sentence. If I want to make that correct, I have to say I compiled the proposal myself last quarter. Myself reflecting back to I. Okay. Okay, so that's reflexive. Relative. So this is a tricky one because these words are both relative pronouns and interrogative pronouns. Who, which, what. Who, which, what. But we're using them differently. Okay, we're trying to relate one part of the sentence to another. So this is kind of giving you the little heads up here. The word who, it's a relative pronoun when it relates to a person we know about. The mother who is waiting to speak to you, blah, 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 right? But it would be interrogative, which we're going to cover down there, when it asks a question. That's what interrogative means. Who will be giving the medication? So you see, these are really different uses, right? Same thing with whom. usually used with a preposition like to whom am I speaking, or the cake was ordered by whom. These are kind of sound overly formal, so often we'll rewrite the sentence to avoid using whom. Who is speaking, or who ordered the cake? Whose is the possessive form of that. Whose socks are these? Which refers things when explaining them. The island, which is very small, has an airport. That adds information. Oahu is an island that has an airport. What? Usually used to ask a question. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? Okay. Indefinite pronouns. So indefinite pronouns are not referring back to an antecedent, which is a specific person. They're sort of a group or a subgroup, something like that. Examples: anybody, everyone, several, someone, something, nobody. So yeah, the trick here is that, is it singular or plural? So most of them are singular, but some are plural. Everyone at work gives blood. Everyone is singular. It's acting sort of like one of those compound nouns, right? Talking about the group of everyone as one thing. But if I said few at school give blood, well, few I sort of picked out of the group as a subgroup, and now I'm talking about plural. And I understand this, like, what? That seems pretty subtle. Here's a trick. If you're not sure if it's singular or plural, you can try substituting different words to check, like put an actual number in the sentence and see if the sentence still works. Okay. And remember, this is all important because whatever indefinite pronoun you pick here has to match its antecedent, whether it was singular or plural. Okay. Look for singular and plural pronouns. Either, each, may, both, few. The second pronoun in the sentence is the clue. For example, either of the girls can perform her procedure. Because her is singular, you can tell that either is singular, right? So girls was plural, but since we said either of the girls, that means we're sort of plucking out of the plural girls this girl and that girl, or as many as there are. Right? So that's how it becomes from a plural girls to a singular either. And so we would pick her because that's the singular version of the pronoun. If you can substitute the word one for the word either, one of the girls can perform her procedure, then that's the check, right? Interrogative pronouns, same words, but we're using them differently. These are asking questions. Who made dinner? Which are the correct instructions? What caused the fever? And demonstratives are just pointing out this, that, these, those. This and that are singular. These and those are plural. Okay, so here's our assignment. We're going to do this in class. And this assignment is just asking you some questions about pronouns. So if you want to follow along and do it right now, that's great. Otherwise, it's being recorded. You can go back and check the recording. Okay, so it's a text box thing. We're just going to copy these sentences, paste them into the text box below, and then put an answer. So what is an antecedent? Someone tell me what an antecedent is. It's going to take a long time if nobody chimes in. Nobody knows what an antecedent is.
Could we get to the homework through the Zoom page, or to open up a new?
You have to be on your canvas, right? And I remember, like we talked last time, you don't have a lot of screen real estate, so trying to get the Zoom and the canvas up at the same time is kind of an issue. I understand.
The antecedent is before the noun, right?
The antecedent is the original noun or pronoun that this pronoun is replacing.
Okay.
Like the governor, Gavin Newsom thing would have been the antecedent of his or he, in a sense, right? It's the thing that this pronoun is standing in for.
It takes the place of the person, animal, or thing. previously mentioned.
That's right. You can just scroll up and there's the definition right up there. List the 4 things that a personal pronoun must match to its antecedents. So do we remember what those are? You can skip.
Is it
Gender,
he, him? Yeah.
Go ahead.
gender, number, person in case of the antecedent.
Very good. That's right.
What is it?
It's right up here, right? Got to match gender, number, person, and case. We're going to talk about case in the next assignment. Again. Okay, where were we?
I know.
List the 6 different types of pronouns. Again, let's go right back up here.
Personal, possessive, demonstrative, reflexive, relative, and interrogative pronouns.
Yeah, personal, reflexive, relative, indefinite, interrogative, and demonstrative.
Person.
Right under the part there.
Pronouns.
Right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Next question. List the 4 different genders. Give an example noun for each one. So we have male. So example nouns. You can use the pronoun chart for this if you want. But just an example of male pronoun, he, him, his. Those are examples, right? Female, her, hers,
She.
she. Examples. What about inanimate? It's. I think I have that all in this chart up here too, right? Yeah. And what about neutral? They, them. We'll do some examples. You just have to put one example. Okay, that was gender. List the 3 cases for a personal pronoun. So the main 2 cases that we're going to explore further are the subjective and the objective. But there's a third one, the possessive case, that we're going to cover later. So subjective, objective, possessive.
That's number 5.
That was number 5, yes.
Subjective. Where's that?
Where's what?
Where did you find that one?
Up here. Right there, under gender. 1, 2, 3, 4. Here's some examples.
Oh, yeah. Oops.
I'm going to bring up the chart for a second. Oh, I already had it. Because the next question is asking you about that chart. Which one? We're on number 6, right? What pronoun would be used for a third person singular feminine objective case? Let's look at this. Let me tear this off here. We want third person singular feminine objective. So we look up here in the singular section, right? We're looking at third person feminine, right? So far we've got the third person singular feminine. We got that covered. We're on this row. And now we're asking objective case. So objective, her. So that's how you use the chart. Oops. Okay, number 7. Why does the first and second person singular part of the table? So we're talking about first and second part of the singular table. So these 2 rows right here. Right?
And then you have it right here, the list.
You see it on the
Yes, I
screen right
just
there?
found it.
Yeah. Yeah, this one you might have to do later so you can have them side by side, or you can just look at the Zoom screen and see what I have up there.
Yeah.
So why does the first and second person singular part of the table not have entries for each gender, right? See, these ones have third person feminine, third person masculine, neutral, and inanimate, right? But these just say first person, second person. Why isn't there a feminine, masculine, neutral, and inanimate situations, cases for all these? Why? Any ideas?
Could you use the name to refer to the person?
Well, we're using a pronoun here, so we're picking one of these pronouns here for this particular case, right? To refer
Yeah.
to that person. But my question is, in this chart, we don't have extra pronouns for first person masculine or feminine or neutral or inanimate. We just have first person. We just have second person. Whereas in the third person, we have all the different genders. Another way you can think about it is it's almost like a wild card. These match any gender. You don't have to be specific about the gender when you're a first or second person. And my question is, why? Why does the English language have more pronouns here for first and second person if it's female, male, neutral, or inanimate?
Because it's just kind of referring to the other person?
The other person in your conversation, right? First person, second person.
Okay.
You already know who you're talking to. You're either talking about yourself or you're talking about the person right there in front of you you're having a conversation with, for the most part. So you already know who they are, right?
So you and I, conversation? I don't know.
Exactly. You and I, right
Oh.
there. Right? I don't say there's no you feminine. Like I'm talking to you. I know you're feminine in this case. It's obvious. Right? So that's the reason.
So you and I, or you and I conversation, like, because you and I are talking. No, you and I. Okay.
Right? Now, okay, there could be situations where, oh, I'm on a chat group or I don't really know who I'm talking to, although I'm having a conversation with them. I'm being catfished or whatever,
Oh my
right?
goodness.
Yeah. Let's not even go there. I guess you could say the English language pronouns haven't caught up to that technology. All right, where are we?
Number 8.
Number 8. Why does the plural section of the table not have entries for each gender? So down here, we're in the plural. Again, we have first, second, third person, but there's no masculine, feminine, neutral, or inanimate down here for a choice. Why?
Because you're talking about many.
Exactly. I'm talking about we or they. It's a collection of, it's mixed, potentially, right? Yeah, exactly.
So the answer is we.
The answer is it's plural, so it could be combinations of all those genders, not specific to a gender. Okay, I suppose if it's like, the girls' basketball team, right? But again, you don't have to worry about choosing the pronoun for feminine there. You would just say we.
Wow.
All right, what number are we on now? 9? Yes. If you and I are talking about a woman who is not part of our conversation, what possible pronouns could we use? Okay, so you and I are talking. Which person are we in?
Third.
Are talking.
They, them.
So you and I are talking. We're talking about a woman who is not part of our conversation, right? So third person. That's a third person. It's not me. And it's not you in our conversation. It's someone else, right? Okay. So, we're talking about a woman who's not. What are possible pronouns we could use? So, third person, right?
Hers.
We could say any of these things, right? We could say she, her, hers. Okay, last one. If I'm talking to you about something that belongs to you, what would be 2 pronouns I could use? So I'm talking to you, so that would be second person, right? And I'm talking about possessiveness.
You or your.
Yours or your.
Should just-
So that's a kind of a good point. You notice there's some duplicates here, right? Where you can use like it's an it and it. So there's really not a distinction in this particular situation. Say third person inanimate. If it's a subjective or objective, we still use the same it. We don't change it, whereas we do for the other ones. Just to make the chart work, we have to duplicate the thing. Okay, so that was the 10 questions. We all good with that?
I messed up.
Messed up?
Yes, I accidentally erased one number, so now each time I put it back. Let me take a picture of it because I'm entering them and then,
We can talk after if you want. Clarification.
so if I don't submit it right now and I leave it alone, because I accidentally erased number 6 and then I try to put it back, but now it's pushing everything. So I'll just leave it alone for, can I
come back
fix it
to it.
later?
It
It won't take it off, okay.
Don't go away from that page though. So I'll tell you what, do this. You know about this trick? You can go up to the tab, right click and say duplicate. It gives you a second tab, right?
Oh,
Now you can go wherever you want. That one is just gonna sit right there.
oh,
Come back to it. Okay, so now if
Okay.
you want to continue on, because we're gonna go next.
yes,
So this is sitting there with your stuff still in the text box. You can come back to it after we're done. Okay with that?
yes, thank you.
All right. Last time we talked like Yoda, this time we're gonna talk about Cookie Monster. Okay, so we talked about the subjective versus the objective case. Let's talk about it in detail. So yeah, we've seen that a pronoun has case. So yeah, again, we're not talking about upper lowercase letters here. In this context, we're talking about how that pronoun relates to the verb in the sentence or independent clause that it's in. And a case can be subjective or objective, depending on how that pronoun relates to that verb. If the pronoun is performing the action of the verb, the case is subjective. You could say it's the subject of the verb. That helps you remember. If the pronoun is receiving the action of the verb, then the case is objective. It's the object of the action. And like I mentioned, there's also a possessive case. We're going to do that later. So why do we care? Because knowing the case lets you pick that correct pronoun to use, right? We go back to the pronoun chart, and remember there's 2 columns for subjective and objective. So you have to pick the right one. So let's talk about the subjective case first. The subjective case. Now, just so you know, so you think that grammar and the English language in general are these dusty old things that are hundreds of years old. It hasn't changed since forever. That is wrong. Language is a living thing. It changes every single day, right? Dictionaries add new words every year. We change the names of things to try to make it easier. And this is an example. The subjective case used to be called the nominative case back in the day. In fact, if you look in our textbook, in the back, there's a grammar section. It still uses nominative. We kind of don't use that anymore. It doesn't make a lot of sense. It's like nominative. What the heck does that mean? But subjective, okay, that means something. It's the subject of the verb, right? But just so you know, if you're looking in old books, you might see nominative. That means subjective. So in the subjective case, the subject of a sentence, whether it be a noun or a pronoun, serves as the subject of the verb because the subject is performing or doing that action of the verb. So if you go back and look at the pronoun chart, the pronouns that can be used for subjective cases are I, you, she, he, they, it, and we. For example, I took out the garbage, right? I'm using I because I am doing the action of taking the garbage out, right? The pronoun I is performing the action of the verb took. I is the subjective case. First person singular pronoun. If you look in the chart, you'll find it right there. The other first person singular pronoun is me. That's in the objective column. But that pronoun is for the objective case, not the subjective case. And if you use that, you're going to sound like Cookie Monster. Me took the garbage out. We don't want to sound like Cookie Monster. The garbage isn't doing the taking. I is doing the taking. Okay, so that's subjective case. What about objective case? In the objective case, the subject of the sentence, whether that be a noun or pronoun, serves as the object of the verb because the subject is receiving the action of the verb. And pronouns that can be used for objective cases, if you look in the chart down the objective column, Me, you, her, him, them, it, us. For example, her vital signs were taken. Okay, the pronoun her is receiving the action of the verb taken. Her is the objective case third person singular female pronoun. Look in the chart. Got to match all that stuff, right? The other third person singular female pronoun in the objective column, in the subjective column, is she. But that's for the subjective case, not the objective case. And if you use that, you sound like Cookie Monster again. Sort of. She vital signs were taken. She's not doing the vital sign taking. Somebody else is doing the taking. She is receiving the action. Another way that you can think of it that might be helpful is with these direction arrows. So we already know, drilled into us, that English is the SVO ordered language, subject, verb, object, if you have one. So you can imagine an arrow pointing from the subject to the verb, for the subjective case, subject to the verb, or you can imagine an arrow pointing from the verb to the subject. The verb goes to the subject. The subject's receiving the action of the verb. Like this, right? Okay. That all sounds great in practice, but in real life, sometimes it gets tricky to try to decide which pronoun should I use. I don't know. Is it objective or subjective? I can't tell. So here's some tricks. I have this also in the reference module, just as its own page, if you want to look at that while you're writing. Okay, so the first trick is if the sentence has two people in it, try rephrasing the sentence with just one to see if the pronoun, whether it be subjective or objective, fits. So here's an example. Because of outside sales, the company gave bonuses to Mark and, is it Mark and me or Mark and I? Okay, so our trick is we're going to rephrase this without the other person. The company gave bonuses to me. That sounds right. That's the objective case. Yes. Your other choice would be the company gave bonuses to I. That doesn't sound right. That's the subjective case. Wrong. Here's another example. My friend and, is it I or me, could not decide on an apartment to share. So again, same trick. You're going to remove the other person and just put yourself in there. I could not decide. That sounds right. Subjective. Me could not decide. That's Cookie Monster. Here's another trick. If you can't decide that the pronoun should be who or whoever, that's the subjective, or whom or whomever, that's the objective. Here's the example sentence. Please distribute the supplies to, is it whoever or whomever ordered them? Here's the trick. Either substitute or answer the question with he or she, which is subjective, or him or her, which is objective, to see what fits. All right, so I'm gonna substitute in she ordered them. That's the subjective, that sounds right. So for the subjective, we use whoever. You can look in the pronoun chart to see which is which, but I'm telling you right here. Right, subjective is who and whoever. I'll give you a little trick to try to remember this later. If I said her ordered them, yeah, that's Cookie Monster. That doesn't sound right. Here's another example. Who or whom did you say was having trouble with the virus protection software? You can try answering the question. He was. That sounds right. If I said him was, that doesn't sound right. So he was, that's the subjective, and we know for subjective, our choices are either who or whoever. Okay, so my trick to help you remember this is you can either use, for the substitution, you can use he or she or him or her, right? Well, if you use the masculine one, him has an M in it, and that matches the M in the whom. That's a way to kind of remember without having to go bring up the pronoun chart.
That's a good one.
Okay, if you can't decide if a question is subjective or objective, here's an example. We expected Mr. Thomas to call. Was it he or was it him who left the message? Here's the trick. Answer the question with either he or she or him or her to see if it's subjective or objective. He left the message. Yeah, that sounds right. That's subjective, right? Because he or she is subjective. If I said him left the message, that sounds wrong. Right? And again, him, M goes with the whom.
Is there a sheet for these with the green blocks and red X's?
All I'm doing there is I don't want to give you a sentence in anything I tell you that is wrong as an example, but I don't show you it's wrong. So you might go, oh, that's how you do it. So I always put, if I'm doing a wrong counterexample, it'll have a red X next to it. Like, that's wrong. Do not use that. And if I have the green check mark next to it, it's like, that's the right choice. Right? If it doesn't have either of these, I'm telling you a real thing that's true. I just don't want someone coming back to me. You said him left the message was the right thing to say. No, I didn't. It's got X on it. All right, so here's your assignment. Subjective versus objective pronoun choice. Same thing as a text box. Copy these sentences, put them in your text box. The proposal was compiled by Jeremy and I, or Jeremy and me last quarter.
I.
Yeah, so you do the trick where you can take out the Jeremy, right? The proposal was compiled by I last quarter? I don't think so. Proposal was compiled by me last quarter? Yes. So me.
For the assignment, are we rewriting the sentence?
You can
Or are
either
we just putting I and me?
you can just bold the correct choice. That's the easy thing. If you want, whatever you want to do, you can put it after the sentence, which one you picked. But I think just
The correct answer is I.
no, the correct answer is me. Again, take out the other person. The proposal was compiled by, forget Jeremy for a second. Proposal was compiled by I last quarter. Does that sound right? Or the
No.
proposal was compiled by me last quarter. Does that sound right? Me.
Okay.
Who or whom did you say the boss has fired via text? So we can use one of our tricks. We can answer this, right? The boss fired he or him? Which one sounds right? The boss fired he, or the boss fired him?
And
Him, that has the M, so whom? Whom did you say the boss has fired via text? Jillian and either I or me will come with you. Same trick, get rid of the Jillian, just be you. Me come with you. Me will come with you, or I will come with you. I. You may share the apples with Alex and, is it he or him? Same trick, get rid of the Alex for a second. You may share, well, share is a little bit weird, but you may share the
Him.
with him. Can you tell us the name of the artist who or whom she mentioned? So you can answer it. She mentioned he, or she mentioned him. Him, M, whom.
it's not he. No.
Because of outside sales, the company gave bonuses to Mark and me, I. Same trick.
But
Rephrase.
you didn't mention any gender though. Can you mention the artist?
So if you look at the
Or the one
pronoun
before.
who and whom, it's the same one for gender. It doesn't have a gender in that situation
Oh, okay, my bad.
for those two, right? And for the trick, you can replace it with, he or him or she or her. But to use that memory trick I was telling you about, if you use the masculine, M in the him will go with M in the whom. That's just a trick to remember. Okay, because of outside sales, the company gave bonuses to Mark and me. Same trick. I'm going to get rid of Mark for a second. Because of outside sales, the company gave bonuses to I. No, that sounds wrong. Gave bonuses to me. Yes. And again, you can try, I'm giving you these tricks because sometimes you can't tell if it's objective or subjective. But if you can tell if it's objective or subjective, great, go with that. So the company is giving to, right? My friend, and is it I or me, could not decide on an apartment to share. Same trick, rid of your friend. I could not decide on an apartment, or me could not decide on an apartment. I. Roland is the man, is it whom or who wrote a cookbook? Trick, you can answer it. Who wrote the cookbook? He did, not him did. So who? Please distribute the supplies to whomever ordered them. Same trick, right? Go back up here if you want to see. It's the same exact example I already gave you. You should be able to figure it out from here. I'm giving it to you. Whoever.
Is it whomever?
What's that?
Is it whomever?
Yeah, if you go back up to here, where was it? Each distributor applies to whoever or whomever ordered them. So we're going to answer it with she ordered them or her ordered them. She ordered them. That's subjective, so that's the whoever.
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 Number 9, whoever.
Whoever ordered them. Okay, number 10, who or whom wrote that memo? You can answer it, he did or him did. He did, so it's who, right? Does that make sense?
2 thumbs up.
Yeah, okay.
Now it's kind of confusing.
It is confusing. That's why I'm giving you these tricks.
I like the trick I got on this something, not the one.
Yeah, because we go through this whole, oh, it's subjective versus subjective. You can just see by the action of the direction of the action, right? And it's like, okay, great, but I'm coming down in these kinds of sentences and it's not that clear to me what the direction of the action is. I mean, if you really stare at it for a while and you're a grammar nerd, you can figure it out. But for most of us, it's like, I don't know who's receiving the action or who's doing the action. I can't tell. So you can use these tricks, try to figure it out. All right. I hope you submitted and you got your confetti.
And drinking coffee.
All right. So we have a discussion, as we always do. And this one's talking about the 500 million math mistake. It's a little article you can read here. This is about, this is back in the day when the Intel Pentium chip first came out. The Intel Pentium chip has a floating point processor built into it. Floating point just means not integers, so it's like 3.14. It's got decimal point in it. It had a math bug in it. And read the article, but at first Intel was like, no, it doesn't. And these math professors are like, yeah, it does. Look right here. Here's the evidence. And then Intel was like, oh, yeah, but for most people, it won't matter. And the math people were like, what, really? Come on. And then Intel was like, well, okay, I guess it does matter. You're gonna have to buy a new chip. And people were like, oh, no, we're not. You're gonna give us a replacement. And they did, and it cost them $500 million to replace all those chips. So yeah, their bad news response, not the greatest. Not only did it cost them 500 million, that's sort of beside the point. The way that they responded was horrible. They tried to ignore it. They tried to belay it, tried to not take responsibility for it. So yeah, read this little article. It's not very long. Maybe some of us at a certain age even remember when this happened. And then you're going in your discussion post, you're going to say, what did they do wrong in their response? So I'm not that interested in the technical details of the bug itself, right? Yeah, the engineer forgot to put some entries in an internal table, whatever. I don't care about that. I care about the company's response and their bad news message. What did they do wrong? And when they responded, how would you have handled it differently? And then the usual part of this module is confusing, which is clear. Okay. And then after you do that, the usual, find at least one that you can reply to, give them a reply. Is that clear? Right. Here's your little module quiz. I'll let you do that on your own. As Alicia pointed out, you can take these over and over again. So you do it one time, maybe you missed one or two, you just going to tell you the right answer. Might as well take it again with the right answers. I mean, they're not worth that many points, but hey, what the heck. Okay, so what did we do? We looked at the structure of bad news messages, part 1. We have part 2 coming up next week, and we looked at pronouns. So yeah, we're going to continue to examine, make the message, and then we have our first actual quiz, which comprehensive
My brain.
goes back through everything. We'll talk about that next week. Okay, any questions on anything we covered today?
Yeah, the first assignment we just went over. Oh, I guess I could just go over the
The first assignment in this module that we just went over,
yeah, the not the one we just finished. It's the
week 2?
right now sorry,
The
I'm not like
parts of speech pronouns?
yeah, question 2, it says the
So that was
we
this
just went
week.
over it. But I'm just trying to figure out where because I kind of got like I lost
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, like I was
where do I find all the answers for number 2?
for number 2, list the
So I know
4.
you were referring to a box, right? To a
This one lists the 4 things that a personal pronoun must match to its antecedent. That one?
yeah.
Yeah, okay, so I'm asking you questions here about things I went over in this exact thing. So you just look up here, what are the 4 things that it has to match? Right?
Yeah.
They have to match these things, right? So gender, number, person, and case. That's the 4 things.
Gender, number. Okay. Okay, cool.
Yeah, so remember you're being recorded. So anytime, you missed something or it was going too fast or you couldn't get those 2 things on your screen at the same time, no sweat, no worry. Tonight you can go back and look where I put them if you don't know the videos. So let's take a look at say week 2, for example. Is I put them back in the overview, the very first thing. So if you look at this one we did last week, blah blah blah, boom, there's the video recording. Right? You just play that. And you don't have to watch the whole thing. If you're like, I just wanted to know what the answer was that one, you can just go to the part where we're talking about that. Right? So you don't have to sweat missing something. It's all been recorded.
Yeah. So yeah, because we don't have a textbook in here, right? We
Yes,
just go over the notes, the slides.
yes, we do have a textbook.
I couldn't find it in the module.
So that is going to be in module 0, where it's talking about required materials.
Oh my bad.
Right? So that's our textbook. You don't need to buy it. You can buy it if you really want to.
Okay. All right.
Random sushi you found on the table?
No, it's fine.
Oh, okay. That's almost as bad as buying sushi at the gas station.
No.
I told that to my 14-year-old, he didn't care.
Yeah, when you're 14, you can get away with that kind of stuff. Okay, the textbook. So yeah, you can buy it if you want to on Amazon, but you don't need to buy it because you can view it right here in your computer through the Cabrillo library.
No.
Right?
You said if we have the 11E, that's
That's
good.
totally,
It's the same thing.
totally fine. I always assign reading by section number, not page number. So just go to that section, whatever page number it happens to be. There are minor differences in the 11 and 12.
Do the
Okay.
slides kind of go over the general information, or should we go back?
What's the question, Carlos?
Do the slides kind of go over the general information? Because I think I
Yeah,
missed.
the slides are the reading review. I get them from the book company. And they kind of just, quickly review, because honestly, I know that a lot of you just aren't going to read the book. Really
No,
should.
I didn't know we had a textbook. I mean, I was just wondering if I should go back.
I get it. You probably won't. So I've been putting in this, like, I'm going to review. Right?
Okay, thank you.
But just so you know how to get a hold of the thing, let me just go through that really quickly. So you can go to the computing centers. We have physical copies that we can loan you while you're in the computing center, either Aptos or Watsonville.
Okay.
But you can read it online. So I'll show you how you do that. You go to the library site, boom, right here, right? Textbooks online. Read library textbooks online. You click that button. You find us here. What are we? We're this CABT, right? Computer Applications and Business. So you click that one. Find which class we're talking about. 156, 157. Click that. Oh, see, we have a version 11 that some people had last semester. We have a version 12 that we're moving to. Either one works, but hey, as long as you're viewing it online, you might as well pick the latest one, version 12.
You'll see.
Okay.
You have to sign in with your normal everyday thing. I'm already signed in, so it's a single sign in. This is going to go beep, beep, blah. Okay, good. Okay, so then you're here, and then you just click on this PDF chapters thing. and here's the book. All right, so we were in chapter 8, for example.
Use the restroom. I don't need the restroom.
Okay, we're done.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, no, that's coming up, sorry. We're in chapter 6.
And we just look up the sections.
No, we're in bad news. We're chapter 7. Yeah, what reading did I assign? 7-1, right? So yeah, here's where you're supposed to be reading. 7, so here's the book. All right.
Okay.
You just do it right on your computer. So this checkout thing, I did a checkout here. It lasts for 2 hours. But you know, if you're taking more, it shouldn't take you more than 15 minutes to read. I only give you like, you know, small bits to read at a time.
Yeah.
For some reason it's 2 hours. You just have to wait. I forgot how long, and then you can go back in again and it'll do it for those 2 hours.
Okay.
Make sense?
Yeah. Thank you.
No problem. All right. If there's no other questions, I'll see you guys next time. We're in the lab.